Elon Musk entered the courtroom expecting a battle of facts, but what he uncovered was something far darker. What happens when the most powerful man in tech dares to call out the very judges presiding over his future? This isn't just courtroom drama. This is betrayal, power, and a twist that no one, not even Musk, saw coming. Stay with us, because when Musk names names, the world listens. It was supposed to be a formality, a lawsuit Elon Musk thought would be over in days. But as he sat at the defense table, staring up at Judge Melvin Harrow and Chief Justice Carlton Drenner, something in his gut twisted. Harrow's eyes barely flicked upward as Musk's lawyer made their opening argument. Drenner, seated on the oversight panel, wore a look so blank it bordered on robotic. Something wasn't right. Elon had faced pressure before: tech scandals, shareholder uprisings, Twitter implosions. But this wasn't pressure. This was silence. Chilling, loaded silence. "Your Honor, the prosecution's evidence directly contradicts our discovery," said Russell Greer, Musk's trial attorney. Harrow blinked once. "Overruled." Greer paused, taken aback. Musk tilted his head, watching Harrow closely. "Overruled? Again? For a document that was already in the public record?" That was the first red flag. By the time the court recessed for lunch, Elon Musk had already counted 7 separate objections, all from his side, dismissed without a second glance. The prosecution, on the other hand, was granted leeway so wide it bordered on bizarre. Unverified witness testimony, circumstantial assumptions, even speculative remarks, admitted without question. Back in the hallway, Greer whispered, "Something's off." "You think?" Musk replied, pulling out his phone. But he didn't scroll social media this time. He pulled up a contact, investigative journalist Lana Merrick. "I need a favor. Quiet, fast, and deep. I want everything on Melvin Harrow and Carlton Drenner." The message was short. The storm it would unleash? Colossal. 2 hours later, Musk was back in the courtroom, but his mind wasn't on the testimony. He was watching Harrow again. The way the judge scratched at his collar. The tremor in his left hand. A nervous tic? Or guilt? Lana messaged him a single word. "Interesting." What she found: 2 judges, a ghost foundation, and a list of donors that included companies Musk had disrupted with his ventures. Oil, traditional auto, telecom. Deep pockets, who had every reason to see him buried in legal sludge. By the end of the day, Elon couldn't stay silent. He stood up, not when it was his turn, not when prompted, but during a procedural ruling, cutting the air like a blade. "Your Honor," he said, his voice firm, calm, cold. "Before we continue, I think the court, and the public, should know something. I've recently discovered financial contributions tied to both you and Chief Justice Drenner from corporations directly impacted by my businesses. Would you care to explain that to this courtroom?" Gasps filled the chamber. Greer's head snapped up. The prosecutor nearly dropped his folder. Judge Harrow's mouth opened, but no words came out. Chief Justice Drenner looked up slowly, his eyes narrowing like a man realizing too late that the bullet had already been fired. And Musk, he didn't flinch. He leaned forward, voice sharper now. "Because if this trial continues without transparency, it's not just me on trial. It's the entire judicial system." The judge's gavel struck the bench, but it was too late. The hook had been set. The eyes of the world were about to turn toward 2 men in robes. And Elon Musk? He was just getting started. The courtroom was no longer just a chamber of law. It had become a pressure cooker. Reporters swarmed the hallways within an hour. Microphones clashed. Phones rang. And inside the heavy doors of courtroom 6A, Elon Musk sat in total stillness as Judge Harrow recessed the session with a single, shaky sentence. "We will reconvene tomorrow at 10. But no one was waiting for tomorrow. Outside, Lana Merrick stood by a news van, clutching a printed dossier in one hand and a burner phone in the other. Her voice was clipped, urgent, as she spoke to Musk through a secure line. "You were right. Drenner's name is on a private ledger, a trust tied to Sunnivis Petroleum. They donated over $400,000 to his non-profit 2 months before your case landed on his docket." Musk exhaled, low and hard. "And Harrow?" Lana hesitated. "Worse. He owns a piece of a shell LLC, Radcliffe West Investments. Guess who the largest silent partner is?" Musk already knew. "Belton Motors," he said. The same combustion-based car manufacturer that had publicly tried to discredit Tesla's battery technology just 8 months earlier. The dots weren't just connecting, they were combusting. That night, Musk didn't sleep. He went live on X, formerly Twitter, at 2:43 a.m., camera turned low, voice even. "I came into court expecting a trial," he said. "What I walked into was theater. Bought and paid for by the very corporations I disrupted." Within 30 minutes, the stream had over 8 million views. Hashtags exploded. Hashtag Rig Bench. Hashtag Elon versus the gavel. Hashtag Judicial Crisis. But Musk wasn't done. He posted screenshots, not of the entire files, but just enough to show connections. Enough to make people demand the rest. By sunrise, both Harrow and Drenner were trending. Mainstream networks couldn't ignore it anymore. The morning talk shows, even the finance channels, were asking the same question. Did Elon Musk just expose corruption at the federal judicial level? But while the public boiled with speculation, inside the court's chambers, the atmosphere was cold, calculated, and cracking. When Musk entered that morning, Judge Harrow didn't look at him. Chief Justice Drenner wasn't even in the room. Instead, a new face sat in the elevated center seat, a temporary replacement named Sylvia Renton, a sharp-featured woman with no known ties to any energy or tech lobbies. A wild card. The prosecution immediately filed a motion to dismiss the unfounded accusations as a distraction tactic. Musk's lawyer didn't respond right away, because Musk did. "Your Honor," he said, locking eyes with the new judge, "this isn't about distraction. This is about justice. And if those documents I leaked are even half true, then no one in this room has the moral authority to claim otherwise." Judge Renton leaned back. "Mr. Musk," she said, "if what you've introduced is factual, then the scope of this case has changed. Radically." The gallery murmured. Someone outside shouted, "Check the offshore accounts." Inside, the moment simmered. Judge Renton sighed and looked around the courtroom, as if assessing the ruins of something that hadn't even collapsed yet. "I'm freezing all proceedings," she said finally. "Effective immediately. Until a judicial ethics review can be conducted into Judges Harrow and Drenner's financial disclosures." A wave of stunned silence. And just like that, Elon Musk had done what most thought impossible. He shut down a federal trial by exposing the 2 men at the top. But it wasn't over. Because later that afternoon, a black SUV followed Lana Merrick for 6 blocks without headlights. Her phone lit up with a warning from her security software, "Device compromised." And Elon Musk? He received an anonymous message on a secure server. "You've poked the wrong machine. Back off, or next time, it's not your reputation we bury." He read it twice, closed the laptop, and looked out the window of his high-rise suite in Austin, and said only one word. "Good." What followed the courtroom freeze wasn't silence. It was a different kind of chaos, the kind that moved in whispers behind closed doors and shadows that stretched across boardrooms and judges' chambers. And while Elon Musk's public revelation had cracked the surface of what the media now referred to as the most high-profile judicial compromise of the decade, What most people didn't see was the retaliatory ripple it sent beneath the legal infrastructure, where names like Harrow and Drenner weren't just judges but gatekeepers for a network of influence that spanned corporate alliances, political favors, and off-the-record arrangements too entangled for the average eye to unravel. And now that Musk had named them, called them out in public, live, unapologetically, the system had begun doing what it always did when power was threatened. It circled its wagons. Behind the scenes, legal advisors convened in emergency video calls disguised as scheduling meetings, emails were hastily deleted or rerouted through encrypted third-party servers, and there were internal memos that never reached the inboxes they were meant to land in because someone higher up had already pulled the plug. And while the public fixated on the scandal of two judges allegedly tainted by corporate payoffs, the deeper machinery, the one that moved money through faceless trusts and engineered trial outcomes years in advance, quietly shifted into damage control, identifying the threats, marking the weak links, and above all, finding a way to make Musk's accusations look like the ravings of a paranoid billionaire drunk on conspiracy and digital clout. But Elon didn't care about looking paranoid. Because in a suite on the 34th floor of a hotel tower in downtown Austin, surrounded by hard drives, USB sticks with mirrored backups, and 3 off-grid laptops monitored by a cybersecurity team he had personally vetted and flown in from Zurich, he wasn't planning how to respond. He was planning how to escalate, because he understood something that most people still hadn't grasped. This wasn't about one trial or two judges. It was about control, about what happened when the world's most disruptive thinker collided headfirst with an invisible architecture built to never lose. In the days following the court suspension, news coverage exploded with pundits debating ethics while carefully avoiding the real question of how many other cases had passed through the same courtroom under similarly silent conditions. But for every article that speculated on Harrow's retirement or Drenner's possible recusal, there was another piece that painted Musk as a threat to democracy. A reckless egomaniac undermining the court's integrity for personal gain, and that narrative, carefully seeded and repeated, wasn't accidental. It was orchestrated, a media inoculation designed not to protect truth, but to soften the blow should Musk uncover even more names. And he did. With Lana Merrick digging deeper into campaign donations tied to PACs that never filed their full disclosures, and with new leaked documents hinting at an informal list of cooperative judges, quietly exchanged among law firms representing legacy energy conglomerates, Musk now held not just suspicion, but an emerging blueprint of how justice had been shaped, not argued, for years. And as he mapped it across white bars lined with red tape, arrows, timelines, and initials, it became clear that the trial he had just paused wasn't an outlier. It was the model. So, when the anonymous warning appeared on his encrypted terminal, when someone out there let him know that he had poked the wrong machine, it didn't frighten him, it clarified things, because it meant he had reached the layer where real power resided, not in courtrooms or televised hearings, but in the invisible agreements made between billionaires, brokers, and backdoor judges over vintage whiskey and tax-exempt dinners, and if they wanted him to back down, they hadn't been paying attention. Because Elon Musk didn't build rockets, dismantle monopolies, and buy an entire social media empire, just to roll over when someone threatened him with an anonymous file. No. This was the part he liked. In the hours after the leak had gone viral and Judge Harrow's name began disappearing from court documents faster than the law could explain, Elon Musk remained silent, not because he was backing down, but because behind the curtain of social media theatrics and media frenzy, he was orchestrating something more intricate, something that didn't require hashtags or headlines, but instead demanded precision, timing, and a level of access only someone like him could acquire, because while the Judicial Review panel scrambled to contain public fallout and whispered among themselves about temporary suspensions and backdoor settlements, Musk's team had already infiltrated the outer walls of the network that protected men like Harrow and Drenner, not just ethically compromised judges, but nodes in a system that had learned to protect itself by burying truth beneath procedure. From a private data center on the outskirts of Austin, where the servers were cooled by silent turbines and monitored by ex-intelligence contractors, Musk watched as his analysts uncovered file after file, audio logs, metadata tags, transactional trails designed to disappear behind Cayman Islands' shell core, but now revealed thanks to a backdoor vulnerability in the archive software used by Radcliffe West Investments, the same LLC Judge Harrow was tied to, and what they found buried beneath those logs wasn't just financial misconduct. It was strategy. It was intent. It was a calculated effort to manipulate litigation involving not only Musk, but multiple tech innovators whose products threatened the fossil-fueled status quo. There was one folder labeled only Forum 71, and when they decrypted it, they found a recording. A voice, confident, rehearsed, speaking clearly over a soft clinking of glasses, recorded during what appeared to be a private dinner in Charleston just 5 weeks before Musk's trial began. "We control the rhythm of the courtroom, not the facts. Let him bring his lawyers. Let him bring his tweets. At the end of the day, the bench leans where the funders say it leans. The man's a problem, but problems can be routed through protocol." It wasn't Harrow speaking. It wasn't Drenner. It was someone else, older, more powerful, someone unnamed in any of the documents up to that point, and Musk knew the voice wasn't meant for the courtroom. It was the voice of someone who operated above it. And that changed everything. Because this wasn't just a scandal now. This was evidence of systemic manipulation, a judicial cartel posing as blind justice, and Elon Musk, the billionaire many saw as too eccentric to be taken seriously, now had the one thing none of them thought he could get: proof. But proof alone wasn't power. So he devised a plan. He sent the file to 3 people, one senator he didn't trust, one journalist he did, and one private intelligence firm based in the Baltic states, because he understood that once the file moved through international hands, it could never be contained again. And when the journalists published a teaser transcript 2 days later, citing an anonymous source within the tech sector, all hell broke loose. The Department of Justice called for an emergency review. Harrow resigned without a statement. Drenner disappeared from public schedule. But Musk wasn't finished. Not when the man behind that voice was still in the shadows, still untouched. Because now, for the first time, Elon had forced the system not just to flinch, but to bleed. And he had one more card left to play. It all came down to a name. Buried in a metadata tag, mislabeled inside a renamed.zip file, hidden within a cascading structure of folders meant to appear mundane. Financial_revisions_Q4 was a single line of code that hadn't been wiped properly, a digital fingerprint left behind by someone who believed themselves too insulated to ever be traced. But they hadn't counted on someone like Elon Musk, obsessive, meticulous, relentless in the face of deceit. The voice on the recording, the man speaking with such entitlement about the manipulation of courtrooms, turned out to be Gregory Vance, an institutional power broker, former Federal Trade consultant turned executive advisor for Belton Motors, and a shadow architect for at least 7 known corporate PACs, who had funneled influence into the judiciary for over a decade. Vance wasn't a judge, he didn't wear a robe, and he didn't sign verdicts, but he owned the room where those verdicts were shaped. And now Elon Musk had him. But Musk didn't go public. Not yet. Instead, he arranged a meeting. A private suite in Washington, D.C., 2 security details parked in unmarked vans outside, one encrypted camera recording everything from a black orb embedded in the bookshelf. Musk sat at the far end of a long glass table, hands folded, expression unreadable. Vance arrived precisely at 7 p.m., wearing a gray suit so tailored it looked stitched from shadows, And though he entered with the confidence of a man used to controlling the terms, that confidence faltered the moment he saw the laptop open in front of Musk. On screen, the recording, not just the audio, now matched with transcripts, visual overlays of wire transfers, and a timeline showing how each judicial decision aligned with corporate stock spikes. Vance sat, slowly, silently. "I thought you might appreciate the courtesy of seeing it before the rest of the world does," Musk said, his voice like the weight behind a closed vault door. Vance tried to recover. "This is circumstantial. This is nothing a real jury would." Musk leaned forward. "There won't be a jury, Gregory," he said. "There'll be momentum. People won't need a verdict. They'll see a pattern. They'll see the money. They'll see how every innovation that threatens your empire ends up in court, under judges your people bought. And then they'll start asking, how long has this been going on? And who else have you buried?" Vance's mouth opened slightly, closed again. There was no counterargument. He knew it. Musk knew it. "I want you gone," Musk continued. "Out of Belton. Out of energy lobbying. I want full public resignation. Today, I want a public statement admitting ethical compromise. Not guilt. Just failure. And I want it worded my way. And if I don't?" Vance asked, his tone brittle. Elon didn't answer with words. He simply tapped the screen. The image shifted. A live feed. CNN's back-channel servers. The footage was queued. The chairman already drafted. Corruption at the core. The system exposed. Vance's shoulders dropped. He looked at the screen the way one looks at a building right before it crumbles. "You're not fighting for justice," he said bitterly. "You're fighting to humiliate us." Musk smiled faintly. "No. I'm fighting to disinfect you." Within hours, Gregory Vance's resignation hit the newswire. It was cloaked in vague language about strategic restructuring, but Musk made sure the leaks landed at exactly the right time. The transcript followed. The audio. The financial trail. The fallout was immediate. Multiple federal judges quietly withdrew from high-profile corporate cases. A congressional hearing was called. Two energy giants lost 12% in market valuation within 48 hours. But most importantly, the illusion broke. People stopped assuming the system was blind and started asking who was steering the gavel. As for Elon Musk, he didn't gloat. He didn't post memes or victory laps. He went quiet, because he knew something that very few did. This wasn't the end. This was just the moment everyone finally realized. The courtroom was never neutral. And now that the mask had fallen, no one could pretend not to see the machine behind the curtain ever again.